Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be continuing on with the first-person player pawn tutorial series, and in this video we're going to be adding weapon switching, as you can see here in the demo in front of you. And in order to help us along here, I've gone and made up a whole bunch of new assets, a whole bunch of new animations, and I've included them in the download pack, which I've updated now, and will be in the description of this video. All free of charge, but remember, these are non-commercial, like I don't own the rights to the arms or to the AK, so they're perfect for you to practice with, but you can't use them in any sort of paid project. So with that out of the way, let's have a look at what we got here. So first off, there's our Glock, which is a handgun that I made here, and if we go over to the skeleton, we can see that there's the root joint, and we have a slide as well, which moves back like that, and a magazine, which comes out of the gun. And it's I've gone ahead and made the material for it, so we'll just have a quick look at that, just so we know where we're at. Open them up. Here is our Glock material. I've just gone and plugged in the diffused base color and made a couple of calculations here for the metallic and roughness. Okay, so first things first, let's head over to Blueprints and open up our first-person player pawn. So here's as far as we got last time. We're spawning the AK at the begin play. We got our fire and our reload scripts here. Now, of course, we've got our primary weapon down here in the variables here. We're going to need a secondary weapon for our Glock. So come back over to your content browser, and let's just duplicate the AK weapon. Remember, not the weapon base. We don't want to duplicate the base weapon blueprint. We want to duplicate the AK that we made. So we'll just call this Glock_weapon. And let's open that up. We're not going to change much here for the time being, although obviously we'll change our static mesh here. Oh no, we want to change our primary weapon. Change the primary weapon to our rigged Glock, and it will automatically inherit the material. Then we just adjust our components here, so let's grab our light, move that back, grab our static mesh. It'll be invisible, but we can just use the gimbal here to carefully position that in front of our Glock's gun barrel. Easy enough, and the point light, I suppose, somewhere here near the front of the gun, just off to the side, so that it sort of lights us up real nice. So there's compile, save that, and the only other thing we're going to need to do here is, well, later on we can edit these default values here so that the handgun behaves a little differently to the AK, but for the time being, that's all we're going to need to do. So back in our first-person player pawn, let's grab our spawn AK and our attach to component from our begin play node, and let's just Control W to duplicate them, and we'll remove this primary weapon here, and we want to set our spawn actor to our Glock_weapon. So let's hook that up, and then out of the return value, we'll just drag off and then promote that to a variable, and that variable we will call secondary weapon. Easy enough. So we'll connect all this up, connect our secondary weapon to our target with our attach node, and we're ready to move on. Although the first thing we should do is, because as it is right now, it's going to spawn both of these on our player, and we don't really want that. We don't want both guns to spawn at the same time. So let's just hide our secondary weapon to start with. So grab your secondary weapon, get a get, drag off here. We want the root component. So we'll get the root component, just line it up so it looks all neat, and then set visibility. So by default, right as the game starts, we want the visibility to be false. Let's just, whoa, didn't mean to grab that. So we'll sort that up. So we compile and save. Everything should be working fine, and then when we hit play, we've still got our AK, and the Glock is not going to spawn with it. Alright, very cool. So the next thing we'll do is to make ourselves a new variable here. We want a Boolean value for our equipped weapon. And because I'm only going to be using two weapons, how do you spell equipped? Two P's. Equipped weapon. Because I'm only using two weapons, I'm just going to use a Boolean, so true for primary weapon, false for our secondary weapon, and we'll default this Boolean to true, so that when we start, we have the AK out, and it just makes a bit more sense there when we go to start setting this value. And I'm going to use the keys 1, keyboard event 1, and 2. So sort of similar to Counter-Strike, where 1 is your primary weapon, 2 is your handgun. We'll just go with that, and then we'll grab a branch here, and grab our isReloading Boolean. We'll just get that, plug it in here as the condition, because we don't want to be able to switch weapons while we're reloading. So let's just hook up both of these to duplicate this branch with Control W. Make sure we put in our isReloading Boolean as the condition, and then out of our false, so if we are not reloading, we'll be setting this Boolean value. Just like that. So it's going to be equipped weapon, true. So when we hit 1, it's going to pull out our primary. When we hit 2, it's going to pull out our handgun. And similarly to before, let's grab these nodes here, our set visibility. Just move this around a little bit. We'll grab our primary weapon as well, just as a get. And let's see, we'll duplicate this and this. Hook these guys up. In fact, I'll swap these around. We'll go secondary weapon at the bottom, primary weapon at the top. And with that all hooked up, let's just connect it to our tree. So our top one, equip weapon true. This is our AK, and equip weapon false is our handgun. So we want our visibility for our AK to be true when our equip weapon boolean is true. That way it's visible when we have the boolean set right, and we do the opposite for our handgun right here. And then just to make sure that everything's showing what it's supposed to be, I'm going to duplicate these set visibility nodes, swap over our root components here. So now when we hit 1, we hide our handgun, and when we hit 2, we hide our AK. So to cover, we want our visibility to be true on our weapon when we select it, and we want the other weapon to be visible or not visible when we've got the opposite one selected. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. In fact, we can probably see how this works. Let's compile and save, hit play. There we go. So when we hit 1 and 2, we are alternating between which gun we got equipped. You can't quite see the Glock there because of the way that the hands are, but that's what we'll do next. We'll head over to our animation blueprint, which is over in our animations folder. Open up our arms_NMBP, and we can edit our animations here so that we bring in our handgun animations. Part of the in your download pack, you should find a bunch more animations that I've made. For example, our Glock idle animation. These are all included in the download, so make sure if you don't have that, you just head down to the description and be able to download them from there. I've got to rename them as well, so don't get too confused. And when you import these animations, make sure that you set the correct skeleton when you import it, which is going to be our FPS arms_rigged. Same goes for our Glock animations. I got a fire and a reload animation. Make sure you set the right skeleton when you import. Don't just drag and drop the whole folder. Be a little careful with how you import these animations, because you can run into problems if you set the wrong skeleton or anything like that. But they should work just as is if you bring them into the engine. Okay. So over in our arms animation blueprint, we'll go to the event graph. We need to make ourselves a new boolean here. We'll call it our weapon switch. And compile that so that we can use it. And we'll hold it Alt and drag to get a set, and just add this to the end of our chain here, and plug in our, we'll get our casted character, and just get our equipped weapon boolean that we made just a minute ago. If you remember from previous videos when we set up the animations for this, our casted character is our FPS pawn_BP that we cast to and save as a variable so that we can pull off all of these values and such for. So if you need a catch up, I'll probably link the first few parts of the series. Make sure you watch those first, otherwise a lot of this probably won't make sense. Remember, this is part 5, I think. Wow, 5 parts. Okay, so we'll save that. Head back to our animation graph, and the way that we're going to be changing our animations is basically with a simple boolean. That's our weapon switch boolean here. So we'll just drag that into our graph here. I'll pull this out, and the node that we want is a blend poses by bool. Alright, so we'll plug in our weapon switch as the active value of our blend here, and say when our AK is equipped, that'll be our true value, and when our handgun is equipped, that'll be the false. And we can slow these down a little bit. Let's go 0.15 for our blend times, and then to make our animations, let's just Control W and duplicate our state machine. And we'll go ahead and rename these. Let's rename this, we'll rename it AK Loco, and we'll just go with Glock Loco. So with that done, let's open up our Glock Loco. We're not going to change anything in the actual animation blueprint here, because it's all gonna work, just fine as is. But let's open up each of our states here and swap out our animations. So instead of our arms AK idle, we want our Glock, our arms Glock idle. And then back in our state machine, we'll just do these one at a time. So our jump start, Glock, jump start. I know this is very exciting, isn't it? We'll swap all of our swapping animations here. Jump loop and jump end. Where are we? There we go. Glock, jump end. And then our run. Glock, run. Alright, so with that done, we'll compile, head back to our animation graph, plug in our Glock loco into the false, hook up our blend into the into our default slot. We'll compile that, save, and I suppose we need to, well, we'll default our weapon switcher to true, even though it shouldn't be a massive deal. Anyway, let's compile and save that, then we'll hit play. And as you can see, now that I've hit play, we're in the play here. When I hit 2, we bring out our Glock. As you can see, there are still some animations that need to be fixed, like our fire and reload, which are currently playing the AK fire and reload. But we'll fix all that up. But anyway, we see here we got our jump. Jumping is working perfectly. Our idle and our run switched for the Glock. And we go back to our AK, and it's all the same as it was before. Pretty simple way to switch weapons, in my opinion. And I mean, if you want to go further than this, you can make an unequip and an equip animation to play first, like before you change the boolean for which weapon you're holding, you just play an unequip animation on the arms for each weapon. But for the sake of this video, we're just gonna call it here. We can even slow this down a bit. If we go back to animation to our blend by bool here, we'll set this numbers up to 1, just so I can show you what it looks like. Hit play. So we can blend these poses really slowly to get a sort of a little bit more flow. I think 0.15 is a pretty good value. Okay, so with our animation blueprint sorted out, let's move on to tweaking. So first things first, let's go to our Glock weapon. We'll head to our construction script. We want to change our maximum max ammo and our ammo count. So per clip in a Glock, I think the number of rounds is 11, and we'll set our max to 11 as well. Our reload time we can drop down to something like 1.5, and we'll leave our bullet spread for the time being. And then in our event graph, we need to change, well, let's go to our ammo check function. Where are we? Play animation, here we go. We need to change our animation here to the Glock fire animation. But we'll use the animation montage. So I've also gone ahead and made, oh no, that's the wrong one. That's the arms. We don't want the arms, we want the Glock fire. There it is, the Glock fire animation. That's right. File that, save it, and we also want our reload animation, which is currently the AK reload. We want the Glock reload anim. File, save. Now when we hit play, switch to our Glock. Oh, that's still not quite working properly. That would be because back in our first person pawn here, we'll come down to, where are we? Here's our fire animation. We need to change the way that this works depending on which weapon that we're holding. So let's make a little bit of space here. We're going to get our equipped weapon, hold in B and click the graph for a branch. We'll use our equipped weapon as the condition, hook up our branch here, and then we'll just grab all of these, duplicate with Control W, and then delete this primary weapon variable, add our secondary weapon, plug this into ammo count. Because these share the same variables, this should all just hook up just nicely. Then plug in true for our AK, false for our Glock, and then play our arms, Glock, fire, and in montage. Alright, all done. And something's wrong. That's right. We'll hook up our secondary weapon into our fire function. File, and it's all working properly. Let's test. Perfect. That muzzle flash is probably a bit big. Let's go find that. Our muzzle flash. Change the scale here. We'll go scale from 0.01 to, let's say, 0.03. A much smaller muzzle flash for our Glock. Okay, so that's all looking good. Next thing is reloading. And so back in our first person pawn, we're just basically going to do the same thing as here. Let's copy these. I copy this branch and the condition. We'll duplicate it down here by our reloading and just hook this up exactly as it was before. and true will be what we've currently got as our reloading. But let's grab all of this, Control W to duplicate. We'll just move it down here a little bit and plug it into our false. And just like before, we'll delete this primary weapon, grab our secondary weapon. There we go. Plug these into our variables here, and let's move along the line here, see what else we need to change. Here we go. Our arms, we want our arms Glock reload animation. Anything else? Yes, so I'll change this primary weapon here to secondary weapon. Here we go, making carefully sure that we get all these variables just right. And there we have it. We have our reloading done. And we have our shooting done. Let's just double check that everything works fine. Oh, you can hide this bar, by the way, if you accidentally click there. I do that sometimes. Just right-click it, you can go to Hide tab. One of those little things, but it's a quality of life thing in my opinion. Saves that little bit of space on the screen. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point. Okay, so here's our AK. It fires, it shoots. We'll switch to our Glock. And it reloads just fine. You might have noticed the sounds there. That's because if we move over to our Glock reload animation montage, I've already added the animation notifiers for each of these sound effects because I don't have sound effects for Glock. And I've gone drop, then insert, and then when the magazine, or when the slide clicks forward, around, what is that, frame 30 or so, I've just used the drop again. And these are all being referenced by our event graph here, with these animation notifiers that are just playing a sound real quick. I might revisit this and replace these sound effects for the Glock. You know, it's just one of those things I just decided to reuse. Okay. The next thing to do is to fix our HUD. Because if you notice, so our AK works fine. When we reload our AK, it hits back to 30, like we've got a good display of the bullets we currently have in our clip. But we're not getting that same thing with our Glock. So let's open up our HUD and we'll fix that. So we don't need to change anything about our crosshair. The crosshair is going to work fine with no matter what weapon we're holding. Let's open up our ammo health HUD widget here. And so where are we? So this is the max ammo bind. Let's we'll make a little bit of space here. What we need is to get our equipped weapon. There we go, and a branch. And we'll plug all this in. And we'll duplicate this return node because we need a different one for each weapon. So we'll come back out of this cast here. We'll get our secondary weapon. We'll get the max ammo. And plug this into our return node. And it automatically generates for us our to-text integer node here so that it translates into a string. And let's plug in our return node here to the false of our branch, and the other return node, our original return node, goes into the true for our AK. Power that, save it, do the same thing for our current ammo. In fact, let's just save ourselves some time here. I'm just going to duplicate all of these. So actually Control C, I think will probably work a little more consistently. Control V, there we go. Alright, so we'll hook up our equip weapon here, plug it into our input node, duplicate our return node, and then hook it up just as before. Alright, gravy. Oh, missed one. Obviously got to plug that in. Alright, done. Save, just double check that, yep, that's all good. Alright, perfect. So let's save that. Oh, and we better make sure that we plug in our boolean here. Yep, got that one. Otherwise things won't work, so we'll compile, save that again. Head back to our content browser and let's hit play, see if it works. Whoa. Just tapping the function keys randomly. Okay, so our ammo isn't depleting with our Glock. Let's investigate that, find out what's wrong. Okay, let's investigate our HUD. Got our max ammo being displayed with current ammo. Ah, yep, there it is. So instead of our max ammo for a secondary weapon, we need ammo count. Alright, that should sort it out. So we'll compile, save, hit play. Perfect. Look at us go. So that is weapon switching for our first-person player porn. Now there are a couple of things to mention here. For one, if we go back to our first-person player porn, FPS porn, you can see that I'm using a boolean here to swap weapons just with a simple 1 or 2 hit. But if you want to be carrying more guns, for example, like have a melee slot as well, obviously a boolean's not going to work. So what you can do is use an integer instead for your equipped weapon, and then instead of a branch here, we can just have a we could just use these numbers to set an integer and then switch on that integer. I think if we switch on int, so this is the node that you would want, and there'd be pins here, so you can add as many as you want, and when you hit this one, you can just change this integer to whatever really, and then change the weapon that we're holding based on that. But for the sake of just 2 weapons, it's a little simpler, a little easier to just, you know, use a boolean. Okay, so thank you guys for watching along with me this far. This was the 5th part of this series. So I might take a bit of a break from the series for now, and then the next few videos on my channel might be a bit more sort of art related, more material creation, that kind of thing. Maybe some cool stuff with post-processing, maybe some gameplay things. Not sure. There are a few more things that I want to do with this pawn. For example, I'd like to do ADS a little down the line, like an aim down sight function, grenade throwing, melee weapons. So expect that kind of thing for part 6. And until then, guys, I'll catch you next time. Cheers.